We are recording now. It's been it's been an interesting morning. We finally got our technical things under control here.
Seriously, it was such an ordeal getting on this live here, but we made it, so yay.
We did. And so for everyone joining, I know that I had just thrown up a post saying that we were going to be doing this on Divine Conversations, but we ended up on here. So I want to welcome everyone to Cosmic Consciousness, and I would like to introduce the lovely Eric of Divine Conversations.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Excited that we're going to be doing this live together. I love Eric's energy. If you guys haven't checked out his channel, absolutely do. It's phenomenal. Eric does amazing tarot readings and is working with astrology now, with sidereal astrology. So it's a bit of a different kind of vantage or viewpoint with compared to the Western astrology that I do on here. So it's really fun to be able to see the differences there as well. And I'm really excited about today.
Yes.
And did you want to say hello and introduce everyone, Eric? Or introduce, I guess we're going to be doing this for both channels, so introduce me maybe.
Yeah, of course. So hi, I'm Eric. So I'm a tarot reader, as Kassia has said here, and I'm super excited to be here as well. When Kassia, I think somebody that was following me mentioned Kassia, or somehow I stumbled upon, somebody mentioned her to me, one of my viewers over in Divine Conversations, and I watched one of her videos and was instantly like, I know this person, like this is soul kin right here. So I'm very happy and excited to be here talking to you guys and meeting you guys as well, and like fusing our collectives together. That's part of the beauty of being here in this medium. You know, you get to have little pockets of people that find each other and expand and grow. So I'm super excited to be here with you guys. But I consider myself to be a intuitive tarot reader. Some might say psychic tarot reader. I like to call myself an oracle, though. I'm not a fortune teller, but I will give you all the tea in terms of what I'm picking up on for you. And sometimes it freaks people out what comes out, but but it's always helpful, it's always beneficial, it's always meant to provide you with a better point of view to make a better decision for yourself moving forward. So ultimately you win anyway, right? So that's what I'm about. Yay. Very happy to meet you guys, very happy to be here, very excited to have this a conversation with you guys and just, you know, get to know each other. Yes.
Yeah, I love that. That's so beautiful too. And that's actually how I found Divine Conversations. Was I just got curious one day. So I decided to look, and I was like, let's see who's subscribed to my channel recently. And I saw your channel, Eric, and I checked it out, and I was like, he watches me? Wow, that's amazing. I was like, his channel is incredible. And I was so excited. I was just like, oh, this is absolutely amazing. And I really like how you talk about you're real. Right. You like you said, like you are straightforward, you are honest, you can tell that you have like this beautiful, compassionate, loving energy.
Thank you.
But it's still like a no BS kind of vibe. And
100%
collectively right now too. And it's like you touch on all of that and you're not afraid to say the things that need to be said. Yeah. And that's so important. And it's always a fine line that we walk here, right? As we know that we're meant to be here to speak truth. And so when I resonate with somebody who I know is carrying that vibration of truth and that and has that realness, then it really, really excites me, because the more of that we can have in the world, the better. So for those of you who are tuning in on Eric's channel who don't know me, I am Kassia, and so I do a lot of the same stuff that Eric does. I like to call myself, I like to use a different terminology as well. So I call myself an intuitive. Essentially, I channel energy, I channel information when that information is relevant. I use tarot and oracle cards because I love them. I talk a lot about astrology because the astrological energies play such a huge part in this ascension process as we are expanding in consciousness. And that's really what my channel is all about, is helping to guide people through this process of expansion as we rise collectively in consciousness together. and all the ins and outs of that process, right? That process of growth and realization and awakening. And yeah, it's just, it's like Eric said, so beautiful to have like-minded people to talk about these things with. And so I had wanted to do something with Eric just because I love his energy so much. So I reached out, and I have been feeling lately called to talk about the twin flame energy and sort of this twin flame journey. And one thing that I really love about Eric is that you're very personable, and you talk about what's going on in your life, right? You use what's happening in your life to help people to understand the energies and where you're at.
And sometimes it's really crazy because it feels like my life is completely interwoven with everything else or all these other people that's going on. So it's that it's happening with. So it feels like I'm almost compelled to like divulge my whole life story out into public, which is sometimes not the best feeling. And I know it's not like completely like that, but it's just scary sometimes how similar all of our situations are, that we could come together in like a general reading and still resonate with each other and still be like, oh my God, that's happening to me too, but in this way or in that way. It's kind of crazy when you really think about it. It's cool though.
Oh yeah, no, it really is. I think the craziest thing for me is sometimes when I'm doing a reading, and as I'm speaking, I'm realizing, oh, this message is for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for everybody else at the same time, because we're all going through the same things. And it's like sometimes I'm like calling myself out while I'm reading the cards, and I'm like, ooh, Kassia, you better listen to that. You will learn today.
Yep, that's right. That's right. It's crazy. The amount of times I've said to myself, Eric, you need to take your own advice. It's nuts. But well, the twin flame journey is actually what started me doing my channel. What got me to create the channel, not what got me to start reading cards. I had been learning how to read cards long before I even had an idea that the twin flame journey was a thing, let alone what the name of it was, But I had always been into astrology and tarot and magic and witchcrafty stuff and all that kind of, and like druidism and all that kind of stuff, right? Ever since I was a kid. So this was a natural draw for me. So then I started learning, and then I went through a big upheaval in my life, and which included a divorce, and everything was just crazy at that time. And that's when I started the channel, and I started doing twin flame readings. But that was almost 4 years ago now. It'll be 4 years in January of 2022, and I've since moved on heavily from talking about the twin flame situation regularly. I actually stopped talking about it completely, stopped doing readings on it, stopped mentioning it, stopped even focusing on it from my point of view. Like I got to a point where I just didn't want to think about it, mull over it anymore. It wasn't getting resolved. It didn't seem to really be changing, or at least changing in the way that you would want to, or whatever, however you want to say that. So I stepped away from it altogether. But that doesn't mean that the journey or the message or the lessons actually stop. It's just changing the focus. And one of the things that I had mentioned in the very beginning was about the fact that this has something to do with another person. Yes, but it ultimately has more to do with yourself. And so I really took it to the point where I completely turned everything in on myself and stopped projecting it out and started to focus on it from there. And from there, it stopped being called or labeled to me as the twin flame thing. It became something much deeper and much more.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I can relate very similarly. What got me, I became interested in the twin flame journey. At some point, the term was mentioned to me, and I was in a very toxic situationship, I guess you would call it at the time. And when they told me about that idea, I interpreted that relationship as a twin flame relationship because it was so toxic and so triggering to me. And that was all I seemed to hear about the twin flame dynamic, was like, oh, there's the runner and the chaser.
But that's the thing. Once it's not even like you go looking for it, but once it pops into your mind, or once the seeds have been planted, it starts popping up everywhere, right? That was one of the things to me that was the freakiest and the most annoying, was that even though I was doing my best to like not think about it, it kept popping up everywhere.
Yeah, and it did too. It did. So I got interested in it. And then I decided, as a totally separate thing, I wanted to start a YouTube channel. That was part of my dream. And I started, I had always, like you, been interested in all of the esoteric and in tarot and all these different things, but I hadn't really worked with it. Yeah. And so I started teaching myself tarot. And as I was learning, I would watch people on YouTube who read tarot. Because that really helped me to begin to understand like how they put the energies together and tap into that intuition and tap into my own intuition. But all the readers that I liked that I found were twin flame readers. So there it was again in my face. And I'm like, well, I already figured out this guy wasn't my twin flame, right? Like this was a toxic, possibly, I hate throwing too many labels out there, but a very empathic, narcissistic type bond that we had. And but why is this energy keep coming up? And it was not long after that I met the person that I consider to be the person that was contracted, I think, to be my twin flame. And we'll get into that. We'll get into that at some point here. The idea that changes, right? This idea that like the person that we imagine to be that energy is not necessarily, like, those contracts change. They're all soul contracts. And I ultimately had the same journey that you had, where it was like, I had this really intense and incredibly painful relationship with this person, like the deepest relationship, like the deepest connection I think that I had ever experienced. And when it got so, once again, unhealthy and painful, when all that shadow stuff started coming up, it was really kind of traumatic for me. And I spent a lot of time watching twin flame readers and doing like, let's do this union meditation, right? To help relieve some of their childhood trauma and their stuff, so that I can clear their energy, so that they'll come back to me. And like, I got into this whole thing of like believing like I'm meant to be with this person, right? And we have a mission here, and like it's my responsibility to be here and like consistent, even though he doesn't want to be with me. Right? Like, or maybe he does, but he's not going to, because of all these outside factors right now. It's not going to happen. But I got so consumed with that. And then at some point I realized, like that's not what this is about. And I realized it doesn't matter whatever I believe or don't believe, whatever he is to me as a soul, it doesn't matter, because I'm not growing anymore. I'm so focused on him. Right. And I need to bring the focus back on me, because this is really about my healing journey. And ultimately, it's about me loving myself enough to be like, even though I love you more than I think I've ever loved another human being, I have to love me more. Yeah. And loving me means saying goodbye to you and focusing on me. Yes.
Right. And that's ultimately, in hindsight, that's what it was meant for to begin with. Because this the twin flame journey is so much more about your sense of wholeness of the twins within, or the masculine and feminine within. It's about that. And spirit, or the universe, takes us, these spiritual beings incarnated in these three-dimensional situations, and use three-dimensional elements to trigger us into going back in, going within, to stop focusing out there and to start focusing within. And that's when, that moment that you wake up and realize and say, whoa, wait a second, this is so much more. There's so much more to this than what's happening out there. That's the moment that the doorway to the change or the shift in the contracts becomes open. When that shuffle starts to happen of, someone's vibe is changing, someone is shifting away. How is this going to, it's like almost like roulette, right? That the doors or the wheels start turning, and you could land anywhere. It all depends on your vibe. And once you start figuring that out, once you start balancing and healing the masculine and the feminine within you, what it is you desire on the external changes. So of course, there's another example of how this dynamic can change on a dime. Oh, and by the way, there's also free will. So like anything is possible here, you know, and the fact, the thought that that it absolutely has to be one way, or nothing in your life is going to work out, or nothing's going to happen. I mean, people get so caught up, their whole lives get wrapped up into it, you know, and they put their whole sense of self on hold because they don't have that person with them. And it's like, but you are a whole being yourself. You have a mission independent of anybody else on this planet, in this world, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
And that's so important, I think, is to understand that, because I think that that's a huge misperception that people have in the twin flame community, which is this idea that like we're two halves of one soul and we must be reunited with our other half. And it's like, no, you are whole and complete within yourself. And any type of outer union that you want to experience with any divine counterpart, you will not experience until you have become whole within, until your own masculine and feminine, like you said, have unified and you've healed both aspects. And that's what the true twin flame journey is all about, is our own masculine and feminine energies, healing those. Everything that happens on the outside, it's like the macrocosm and the microcosm, right? It's the reflection. It's reflecting an internal journey that we're going on. We're experiencing it externally sometimes because that's showing us what's wanting to be healed inside of us, but it's all about us. Yeah. And of course, this doesn't just happen in twin flame relationships. This happens in any relationship, right?
Exactly.
Everything is a mirror. Yes. And so it's learning that and then seeing that reflection in the mirror and being like, okay, so what am I working on within me? And not doing that because I want to be with you. Because I think that that's a lot of, and that's where I was for a while. I was working on me, but in the back of my mind, it was always like, as I do this, I'm going to end up with you.
Right. And see, that's kind of, a lot of us do that. That is something that's like underlying in our society. It's like woven into the fiber, like, you know what I mean? It's that's something that's ingrained in you from a very young age, and that's not necessarily healthy, but also it's not necessarily your fault because it's something that you were incentivized to do things for external gain or external satisfaction. A big part of mastering yourself in this journey is rewiring yourself to find your own sense of gratification or satisfaction for doing things, not doing things for external gain, because that's fleeting. That's like meh, but that's not sustainable. That's not long lasting, but what's within you is. So learning how to realign with that, master yourself so that you feel more or feel better about those things than what you would ever feel externally is a big part of this. Big part of the twin flame journey. At least that's what I've
absolutely. Yeah, and it's about loving and valuing the self. Like that journey of self-love. Like I thought, well, it's about understanding love, I guess. Right? Like what love truly is, but that all starts with that understanding of self-love. And that valuing the self enough to put ourselves first, right? And to want to heal, like you said, for me. Like I'm no longer doing it for you because I want this prize, right? It's like the carrot that gets dangled originally that gets a lot of people to do the work. And but it's like I want to do it for me. And I think that that's a huge point that a lot of people need to get to. Like I think that's a huge turning point in the journey. And then that point, kind of like you said, where we stop caring altogether. And we're like, all right, this isn't even about that anymore. Like I went through a period just like you did, Eric, where I didn't, like people who watch my channel will know every once in a while I'll do a twin flame reading and it's the masculine and the feminine, but I encourage people to look at it as the two halves of themselves. Right. Because I'm like, I was in that rabbit hole for a long time and I don't want to encourage people to go down that same rabbit hole, even though I know it was helpful for me at the time. Like, I want to encourage that focus on the self. But
right.
And so this is where it gets funny again, kind of like what you said of how it keeps coming up, is like lately it's been coming up a lot. And I've been doing readings, collective energy readings, and that energy keeps coming up. And it makes sense, as during the 1111 portal is a twin flame energy as well. There's a lot of powerful union and twin flame energies associated with the 1111 portal and the 1111 energies. So that makes sense. But it's just sort of like it keeps popping up, and it's like, but this is a thing. This is a thing. Like, you don't want to acknowledge that this is a thing, but it is still a thing. And I'm like, okay, so how do I reconcile that? And what does that mean from this more evolved place that I find myself in? Like, what is my understanding of that journey after everything that I've been through and where I'm at now? And that's sort of what I've been trying to figure out for a little while now, is like, what does that actually mean to me?
As we've been sitting here talking about this, I've been thinking through it, and it's almost as if, anybody can really get. There's a part of me that feels like anybody can really get in on this whole thing, and that's because I'm seeing this as the fusion or the refusion of the masculine with the feminine back together. This is like our big. It's a big open portal for those of us that, or those beings that really want to ascend or really want to reach higher levels of consciousness and whatnot. You have to do that by continuously regaining more and more of your connection with the collective. And with us being in a dichotomous reality, which means like there's one and then there's an opposite representation of it, right? So you have good, bad, light, dark, masculine, and feminine, right? Which is the dynamic here, the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And there's this story within the twin flame journey of abuse between the masculine and the feminine energy. And it's perpetuated on both sides. Both sides have their toxic traits and whatnot, whatever. And the story progresses to where the two of them reconcile, heal, and then fuse back together, as in achieving union, right? But I'm seeing this union as the turning point, that moment where you start to really begin to open up to the collective beyond the 3D, beyond the dichotomous reality. And I hope this isn't going over people's heads, but it's kind of, in this way, it's kind of feeling like a gateway, an opening for anybody that wants to get on the ascension bandwagon. And even saying that sounds like it's cheapening the situation, but it's not meant to be. I mean, anybody is capable of ascending. Is this making sense at all?
Yes, I think it's making sense. And so it's this idea that because the true twin flame journey, as we talked about, is our own unification of our masculine and feminine energies, right. We are creating that portal of energy as we experience that process, right? And we are healing all of those wounds for the collective. Like when we play these out within ourselves, when we play these out with other people, we're healing that divide. Like that's how, the way that I heal my relationship to my masculine energy, or one of the ways that I do that is by healing my relationship to outer masculine energies, because the masculine energies that I experience on the outside help to shape my view of my own masculine energy.
Exactly, because they tend to reflect your internal relationship with them.
Exactly, because my relationship was what it was, but they showed me by acting that out. And part of why my relationship with my own masculine energy was that way was because I hold those collective imprints of the relationship to masculine energy.
Just like what Pamela is saying in the chat right now, when we get triggered, for instance, we can identify what did she or he do or didn't do that caused that, but what am I doing that, am I doing that to myself? This can help us see part of our shadow. Exactly.
So it's all that process, like everything, right? Everything is teaching us and showing us what we need to learn about our own shadow, what we need to learn about ourselves, and the truth of what we think, feel, and believe.
Right.
And but like you said, anybody can get in on this because this is healing work that we're all doing. And then once we've unified, once we've created that unified energy within and really like birthed this whole new energy as a result of that, it's like the two energies that create the third, right? As we unify those, they create their own energy.
The inner child. So you have the mother, the father, the masculine, the feminine, and then the inner child, the spirit.
Yes, yes, yes. I love that. And then once we're at that point, we can, once we're whole and complete within, we can experience a unified experience with somebody else who is also whole and complete.
Exactly.
And that person can be anybody. It doesn't necessarily have to be the person that you thought was your twin flame. Maybe they were, right? They were meant to play that part in your life to show you all of this. But once you're healed, if they haven't healed, that contract is null and void because they're no longer a vibrational match. And somebody, you contract with a new soul who is also whole and complete within, who's gone through this transformation. And then you experience a similar kind of energy, but it's different. It's different. And a lot of times, if we're talking twin flame, we're talking about a soul who has a similar soul blueprint as far as what they came here to do on this planet.
Yes.
Right. Because by the time we're healed and unified like that, and we're in that energy, like we're ready to take care of business when it comes to like what we came here to do. Yes. Because we all came here with a purpose. Right. So those of us who have that soul purpose, we can attract that energy. But it's not necessarily going to be the person that we thought it was. And if we hold on to the attachment to it has to be so-and-so, well, first of all, that's still not self-love. That's still not being whole and complete within. Because the catch to this is by the time we're unified like that, like we were talking about, we don't care whether we have anybody or not because we are whole and complete.
That's
we don't need that anymore. So it's really ironic how it works. But it's likely to be a completely different energy that comes in.
That's right. But that's the thing. What we don't realize and why we need to work on surrendering so much, which is one of the biggest and hardest parts at the very beginning of the journey, being able to surrender and let go and allow things to happen and not force and whatnot, whatever. The reason why is we need to allow ourselves to do that because we don't know how the journey is going to lead us or direct us as we move forward. We may need to end up with a completely different energy because we are a completely different energy by that time.
Yeah,
I mean, exactly. We will be a completely different energy, but we may be so different than where we were in the past or when this started because of what happens on the journey. And by the time we get there, it's all going to be perfect anyway. So by the time we get there and we find ourselves in the space that we've been dreaming of, it could be very different from the space you're dreaming of right now. You never know how the situation is going to turn out.
Yeah, exactly. It's this idea of thinking that we know and putting anything. We never want to put anything in a box. We never want to limit ourselves. Right, by having this expectation of what we think our life is going to look like, what we think anything is going to look like, because our greatest ideas are still limited compared to what's actually possible, and we have no idea. So it's staying open to the journey, staying open to how it is that we're going to grow and evolve, and just trusting. Right, that's where that surrender comes in. Right, trust and surrender go hand in hand. It's very difficult to surrender if you don't trust.
Yeah.
So it's like trusting that everything's going to work out exactly as it's meant to. You're going to be exactly where you're meant to be, in the energy that you're meant to be in, with whatever complementing energies are meant to exist in your life. Exactly it's all in divine timing.
Don't rush it. Just allow it to happen. You'll get there. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. Just allow it to happen. That's where presence comes in. Mm-hmm. Right? Being present. Being here right now and not worrying and not thinking that we have to craft our entire tomorrow.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, it's tempting. We all do that. And it's beautiful to daydream, right? Because that's how we create. But keeping that opening for whatever is truly meant to be, whatever is for our highest good and our highest growth.
Yes.
And just knowing that there's an energy out there that knows better than us what that is.
That's true.
That's going to change directly proportionate to the amount of healing that we do and the amount of growing that we do.
Right. Just allow it to happen.
Yeah, like what I'm perceiving for myself in my future is only relative to the amount of growth that I've achieved at this point.
Yep.
But
100%.
when I get to that point, I may have grown, I'm going to have grown more than I have right now. And so what can be created is exponentially greater because I am exponentially more healed and I have shifted and changed. I think that's kind of like what you were getting at, Eric.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Absolutely. Allow it to change. It's all gonna manifest there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But I think I'm really glad that I felt like it was really important to just kind of get this conversation out there so that people can have that different way to view this energy and not get too caught up in sort of the chase and the drama of it all and thinking so much about the other person. I think that there's also a lot of people who perceive that they're in a twin flame relationship who are actually in a toxic relationship that's meant to be moved out of, but we get so confused by the terminology of the twin flame journey that we often stick around in relationships that are really unhealthy for us for way longer than we should because we have this misinformation that like this is the partner that we're meant to be with. And we've been saying today, even if that is what you would call your twin flame, it doesn't mean that you're meant to be with that person. You're meant to grow. We are all meant to grow and evolve and learn to love ourselves and work on our own inner masculine and feminine energy.
That's right.
And then trust, like Eric said, that whatever is meant to unfold from that will unfold in the perfect divine timing that it's meant to happen. I want to see how everyone's doing. I think I'm looking at the chat now. Yes, I think this is updated here. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to talk about relating to this? If you do, absolutely throw it in the chat there.
Yes, please. I would love to answer questions.
I think the reason that I experienced what I perceive to be my twin flame relationship and the whole journey, I like to call it my twin flame journey more than anything because it's been a journey. But I think the reason that I experienced everything the way that I did was because what I was meant to share this different perspective on what the twin flame journey looks like and what it is.
Yes.
And
it's beneficial to share your story in a truthful way, in a healing way, because people resonate with it and people don't feel so alone. One of the things that really helped me the most was the community that we develop here in these settings like this, because it's people coming together, like we said earlier, sharing this really crazy similar experience, and if you didn't have that interaction, even though it's such a situation surrounding yourself, if you didn't have that interaction with other people, that camaraderie, the connection with other people, being able to connect with people in this way or on that level, I don't know what I would have done, honestly. It was such a heavy situation to begin with. I'm so grateful for all the friends that I had and that I made and all the people that, we all came together and worked through it together. It was wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. That community is so important. I actually didn't have a huge community at first, but I got connected with one of my soul sisters, and actually we ended up starting a channel together. So that was how I first got on YouTube, was the two of us met and we had this connection because we were both the only people we had known who believed themselves to be experiencing this twin flame phenomenon.
Yeah.
So we instantly bonded. And then and it was funny too, because people who witnessed us together said that we had a very twin flame type energy. It was like she and we just had this energy where we really activated and inspired each other. And so we started this channel together, and it kind of got me into this whole thing. And it was so beautiful to have that support and to find online communities as well. Watching videos, I'm like, oh wow, so there's like tons of people who feel through this experience.
There are a lot of them around.
Mm-hmm. And so we have a question here. It says, what are some signs that you're both working together to heal versus harming one another?
That is a very interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
And the gears are turning here to
Yeah,
answer this.
I would say right off the bat, are you acting out of your wounding when you're interacting with each other?
Yes.
Right? Like, are you able to take that step back to be able to own what's yours and to understand that the other person is just helping you act out a scenario, helping to reveal something that wants to be healed? And then are you working to heal what's coming up?
Right.
Or
instead of just pushing it away, instead of ignoring it, instead of starting to battle each other, or maybe things starting to get toxic, if you guys are really handling it, really facing it, really, owning up to it and working on healing it together, consciously working together on it, then I would say that's a sign.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely agree there.
Yeah, for sure. But that's not easy to come by. That takes a lot of maturity on both parts of both individuals. And this is not something that this is another one of those misconception ideas. It's like it's not like the twin flame journey really, or a twin flame relationship. It's not like that really mirrors anything. It's not like it doesn't mirror what a normal relationship could be or would be or might feel like to somebody, to have a connection with another person but having that connection from being in a whole and healthy state. Like, you don't have to be on some special journey you don't have to be in some special class to a person or human being to have that, to want to work on that, to get to that place of wholeness within yourself, so that you can be whole and with someone else, and to make that energy so much stronger. So it's just oh gosh, I lost I lost my train of thought here. But anyway, I love the fact that this as I've been on this for like the last 3 years or so, I've started to experience how this kind of really permeates your whole life, and everything about life and everything about the world changes. And it has helped me find a sense of unity, not just with myself, but with the greater collective, because it drove me so hard within myself to be okay, be whole, stop feeling empty, stop feeling alone without myself. You know what I mean? It's been it's a really beautiful thing. I got totally off track. I completely lost my train of thought. We were talking about shoot, I lost it. Do you remember?
Well, as you were talking, I was actually thinking it was really interesting. So I was thinking about this idea, or this sense that I get, that there are two different types of soul contracts and relationships.
Okay.
That we identify as twin flame, but they're not this, they're different energies. And so what I like, as you were talking, I'm thinking like, yes, we have these souls, and we do this with everyone. Like you said, it's not just specifically like we're twin flames, and so this is why we're having this. Like, any relationship, if we're willing to show up and do the work and look at ourselves,
it mirrors this.
It mirrors, yes, because everything in our experience is a mirror.
That's
exactly.
Right.
So I think that we have these souls that show up that are such intense mirrors for us.
Yeah.
That they bring up all of our shadow stuff to be healed. They bring up everywhere where we've been hiding and afraid to love, right? Where we've been hiding from love. And that's what most people consider to be a twin flame. But I feel as though that is a certain type of soul contract and a certain type of mirror soul that we encounter. But there's also another type of soul, which we also consider to be twin flame, which is the soul with the matching divine blueprint for their purpose in this lifetime. And those feel like sometimes those can be the same soul, but oftentimes those are different souls for many of us.
True.
And so, and either one of these can be romantic, but they don't have to be. So it's all just different types of soul contracts and different types of soul, like relationships with souls that we have. And I think it's just really interesting when we label these in these different contexts, because like we said, what does a true twin flame, what does that mean?
Right.
That means our own masculine and feminine energy. So
Right.
it's like we're analyzing all these different types of soul contracts that exist, but I think sometimes when we get into this energy of calling, well, this person's my twin flame, this person's not, this person's that, like we lose sight of the fact that like really what it's all about is growth.
Exactly.
And if you are growing with somebody, like if you are truly, like, to kind of like further answer that question, I would say, like, if you're truly growing and making progress in a relationship, most of the time, because you can feel that energy, you can feel that momentum, you can see the evidence of your healing.
That's true.
And like, because you start doing things differently. Even if you're still having issues and problems, you're doing things differently than you did before. That's how you know there's growth. If you're doing the same things over and over again.
Yeah.
Yes, constantly in the same cycles,
But
then there's
expecting
not a
something
level
to
of growth
change.
there. Right. And so that's kind of like, that's like a good benchmark, because we always, with every single soul we encounter, we want to understand, like, what is the gift of this person? What are they teaching me? What are they showing me about me? Right. And how can I take that and run with that and grow with that? And when I get to the point where there's no longer any growth that's able to happen, then it's an indicator to me that it's time that soul contract has probably been completed. And
Yep.
it may be time to move on, especially if we're just getting stuck in those old cycles now and there's no more growth. Sometimes when you get to that point where you've grown enough with the soul, the only growth that's left is the growth that comes from leaving that energy.
That's right. The energy stagnates, it gets old, and it doesn't go anywhere. And yeah, it's time to move on at that point.
Yeah. So I don't know if that was helpful. Trying to see if anybody else has anything. Any questions or anything to say? Oh, hello, Pete. We got Pete on there, Pamela, Karen, Johnny, all the beautiful, beautiful souls. Louise. Yeah, but it's that's that journey of self-growth, of self-improvement. And where if I'm not growing, if I'm not shifting at this point in my life, in every relationship that I'm in, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a romantic relationship, whatever it is, if I'm not inspired, if I'm not growing, if it's not feeding me and fueling me in some way, then it's no longer, it can't exist within my reality.
Then I can do without.
What's that?
Then I can do without.
Exactly. Like if it's not assisting me in my growth, then it's if it's not helping me, it's hurting me. Is that
Exactly.
That's kind of the energy.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's not an easy place to get to, especially when we get tangled up in. There were so many instances in my earlier years as I moved through these relationships, right? Lots of karmic. I'm someone who's had lots of deeply karmic relationships, lots of these situations that really, and I talk about this a lot, like the ultimate thing that they did for me was they taught me self-love. They taught me self-worth, because that's what I was really lacking.
Yeah.
Right. So I had all these outer experiences with these, talking about, we'll keep it to one thing here and talk about like romantic relationships, right? All of these men who are reflecting back to me the fact that I didn't love myself. And when I finally, and it was very, very painful, right? But at some point when they're reflecting that back to me, I'm not getting the validation, and I'm going after the ones that aren't going to give me the validation, because like deep inside, even though I don't know it, I want to heal and I want to do the work. So that's who I'm attracted to. And they're reflecting this back to me. And then because I'm not getting the external validation the way that I feel I need it, I have to go within to find that own validation within myself.
Right.
And
it's the tricky way that the universe comes in and backs us into the corner of doing what we needed to do all along.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, exactly. We're at the point of least resistance now, right? Like at
Yes,
some point you realize the work's going to get done whether I like it or not. So I might as well like
exactly.
it, and I might as well get into it, and I might
Just
as
do it.
well, like really fully invest myself in it, because it's much less, it's our level of resistance is what makes things painful.
Right.
Like pain is directly proportionate to our level of resistance.
Resistance. Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, I wish I knew that in before, but now that I know it, it's great. But yikes, that would have been helpful a lot in the early days.
Yes, it would have. I mean, even just a few years ago, I had a mentor that I was working with, and
Ooh,
he used to always tell me that, and it was like I knew it, but I was like, all right, but I don't know how I'm resisting. Like I'm trying not to resist. I'm resisting the resistance, but it's still there. It can be.
still there.
It's practice, like anything.
Yeah.
The more we practice surrendering, the more we practice acceptance, the more we like, we feel what it feels like to be in that state of resistance. Like eventually I think
Yeah.
we just kind of we're tired. We don't want to do that anymore. We just want to continue to be better, and we want to experience more freedom, more
That's right.
happiness.
I like what Louise just said in the chat. She says, remove insistence and resistance disappears. That's like so poignant. It makes so much sense. I love that, Louise. Remove
Yeah. Oh
insistence.
yeah, she's great. She's great at throwing those out there. That is
That's a
absolutely
good
perfect.
one. It's a very good one.
Mhm. And that's a lot of what we've been talking about today, right? It's the
Mhm.
insistence of like, this has to happen a certain way, right? There has to be a certain person. There has to be a certain ending to this story. There has to be a certain like place that this healing journey takes me, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, no, we can
Yeah.
just allow everything to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just allow. Yeah. And it all magically comes together somehow.
It is. When we open ourselves up to that magic, it's amazing how it's just absolutely everywhere. And everything unfolds exactly the way that it's meant to. Once we, like Louise said, release that insistence and
Yeah.
and
And
all the
resist
resistance, and
disappears.
we allow.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and it's incredibly courageous, to be willing and able to take every situation and reflect that back on ourselves, right? To stop
Yeah.
projecting, and to really allow the mirrors in our lives to show us what it is that they want to show us, what it is that we need to see.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And part of when you release this resistance and you start to just allow the universe to do its thing, you realize that it absolutely gives you exactly what you need when you need it. And that's one of the hardest things to overcome when you are learning to uh, when you're learning to be patient with divine timing, because we're taught to need to have everything that we need right there, like ahead of time, in order to feel safe. And if we don't have it, then we're not safe, so we feel unsafe. But the universe doesn't look at it that way, because in terms of the universe, there is no lack. Everybody, everything, and everyone has exactly what they need, and is not in any fear of not receiving what they need. Right? It just doesn't exist. Lack doesn't exist when you're thinking of when you're talking about the abundance of the universe. And so we get into these three-dimensional realities, and we cross this veil of forgetfulness, and we get into these bodies, and we forget where it is we come from, who it is we are, what it is we're truly capable of. And we get here and we're on a path of discovering that, and this twin flame journey absolutely helps you with that. But damn it, I lost it again. But at least I got the beginning part out of it. Oh man, I'm so sorry. I keep losing my train of thought.
I'm glad that this isn't just you that this is happening to, because this has been happening
It
to
happens
me
all the
so
time.
much lately. I'm mid-conversation with people. I
Yeah.
completely forget what we were talking about, and I have to have them repeat it to me. And
Yes.
I've done it on videos. You guys have all seen me in the chat right now. And so I'm like, I'll just stop talking mid-sentence and be like, okay, let's trace it back. What were we talking about? You know,
what were we talking about?
you were talking about just everything that you just had to say was so beautiful. But it's this energy of surrender. It's this energy of trust.
Yes.
Right? Of trusting the universe, trusting that we're going to be provided for, trusting that our path, that we're guided on our path and cared for.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things to do when learning to, we really have to rewire ourselves, you know? But once you get there, things become a lot easier. I promise you that. Once you can become comfortable with how the universe flows and become safe in the fact and the knowledge that if you show up for yourself, you are following through what it is with what you know you need to do and all that kind of stuff. If you're being faithful to yourself and what blah, 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 the universe will step up and be there for you too. I think so many people get lost in needing others to show up for them in order to. No, I'm not trying to generalize everybody. I understand that there are moments where you have certain disabilities, or there are instances where you have certain disabilities. I mean, we're all meant to be here for each other anyway, but there is an overemphasis on externalizing or exporting your sense of peace or personal happiness out onto someone else in order to receive it from them, in order for you to feel safe and happy. And that is so much of what people get wrapped up in the twin flame journey here. So being able to trust in the universe and in providing with you what you need when you need it, no matter how that looks. And then not externalizing your well-being or your sense of personal security or emotional security or happiness or contentment. Those are like the kickers, the key lessons that I've really been able to pick out that helped me the most with the twin flame journey. And the whole ascension process in total, to be honest with you, if we're really being honest.
Yeah, I love that. It's like the understanding of like, it's not your job to make me happy. It's my job to make me happy.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Learning that. And that's a whole, we talk about sovereignty a lot, right?
Yes.
That's an example of being sovereign, is when we are able to show up for ourselves. We're able to take care of ourselves. We're not looking to the external world, not only for validation, but also for those basic requirements of our needs, right? We're able to meet our own needs. And yes, we do that in accordance with spirit. Right? We learn how to rely on spirit as opposed to relying on these external people and situations. And that doesn't
mean that how we go about receiving what it is we need doesn't involve other people, but it's not dependent on the flow of it. It's hard to explain.
It is because it's a delicate balance of what we're trying to explain. So it's like we are very open to receive, but we're not necessarily expecting other people to do for us. We're not expecting others to do for us what we are capable of doing for ourselves.
Right.
I think that's a good way. That's a good way. And it's not like the energy that you were talking about, Eric, that I think a lot of people, one of the energies that the twin flame journey or dynamic helps us to move through and that we're helping to clear collectively is that energy of codependency.
Absolutely.
Because that's the energy that it brings up within us, where it's like we get almost addicted to this other person and it's everything becomes about them. And it's why are they not giving me what I need? Why are they running away from me? Why are they doing this? And then we have to catch ourselves and be like, wait a minute. Why am I so worried about them? What about me? Why am I not
me? Exactly.
Yeah. And so I think there's a lot of good stuff in what you said. And I also just love that aspect of learning how to trust the universe.
Yes.
Right? Learning how to trust spirit. And when we live in that state of surrender and trust, and I think that there was a question, it said something, somebody asked, what is the difference between, how do you know the difference between surrendering and giving up? And so it's,
okay.
Did you have something there? I feel
yes,
like
because I've been walking that line. I've actually been defining that line for myself lately too. Giving up to me would be completely, even though I know I feel passionate about something, even though I know I feel called to do something, even though I know that I'm very good at something, and the more I do it, the more I prove to myself how adept I am at it. And even though in the face of the fact that it may not be going the way that I want it to, or in ways that may deem it as successful, I'm still called to do it. And so I'm still going to do it. That is persevering, right? But surrendering here in this situation is not worrying about how it's going to happen, why it's going to happen, why I'm even being called to do this. I just know I'm passionate about it, so I'm going to do it, and I'm being called to do it, so I'm going to do it anyway. Not worrying about how, still worrying about, like, living my life and having to, put food on the table and keep a roof over my head, like being practical in that sense, but not focusing on the details, just following through with what my heart's guidance would be. Giving up would be knowing all this stuff about the situation and saying, this is not going the way that I want it to go, or the way I thought it should go, or the way I was told it was going to go, whatever, insert your reason there, and then letting go and completely, like, stop doing it and turning your attention to something else. Now, there is also a fine line here too, because it gets to a point where if it doesn't serve you emotionally, if you don't feel called to do it, if you don't feel some sort of love or joy for doing it, even though there may be some aspects of it that maybe aren't ideal, if you've lost that spark, then, quote, giving up at this sense is more of an act of surrender, because it's not even, you don't even like doing it anymore. It's not serving you emotionally in a beneficial way any longer. So at that point, that would be surrender and not giving up. Is this making sense?
Yeah, it's making sense to me. I think you hit the nail on the head too when you're talking about, like, there's that element of control.
Yeah.
Right. So even in the surrender is giving up the control of a situation. That doesn't mean that it's not taking the steps that we're guided to take. Right. We still want to do that, but it's giving up the control of how it's all going to transpire. And that control, like, even when you talked about giving up, right? What is the reason that we usually give up? I can't control the situation. Right. It's
exactly
happening the way I want it to. Yeah. Things aren't unfolding the way I want. I don't think I'm going to get what I want out of this. And so it's like following that voice within, right? Because that voice within is telling us, right? Our intuition is guiding us and telling us the path to take. So like Eric said, surrendering to our intuition means going with the flow of what we feel called to do. Right. Whereas giving up is just when we know we should do something, or I hate the word should, but we know that we're being called to do something, or it would it would benefit us to show up in a situation, or to put our energy in a certain direction, but we feel overwhelmed, or we're, like Eric said, frustrated because we can't control the situation, or whatever those lower vibratory emotions are getting the best of us. And so we're like, I'm just washing my hands of it. Right. I'm going to take the path that's easier. Even I'm not going to go down the path that's offering me the growth right now and the expansion, because it's too hard. So I'm going to pull back into an energy that's easier. And sometimes we do that. Sometimes we give up, and giving up can be surrender. Like Eric said, it's a very fine line, because sometimes we need that break. But it's like knowing when it is that we need the break and when it is that we are like, is the momentum supporting us? Do the energies feel like they're supporting us, or does it feel like the energies are asking us to take a rest and take a break?
If you're here's an example. I moved here to I live in Puerto Rico, and I moved here in June of 2020. And when I moved here, I had all of these plans for this space that I have. And I'm sitting right now in what I wanted to be the studio. But when I got here, I ran into all kinds of roadblocks, one after another, that completely derailed everything I had planned on. And I was forced to just sit on my hands and surrender to the situation and allow it to flow the way that it was naturally meant to, or going to flow, whatever, however you want to call it. It was one of the most difficult things that I had to do, because I had so much writing on everything that I was planning on doing, and now I couldn't really do what I was planning on doing, and I'm being told to just relax and chill out and go with the flow. What do you mean go with the flow? Like, it was one of the hardest things to do. But now in hindsight, a year and a half later, I see how everything is working out and was supposed to be working out for my growth and my development. And so it's put me at ease, but it's also helping me be more trusting of the universe as I move forward, because I'm starting to see how everything does happen for a reason. And there are so many moments where I've just said to myself, even in like one of the deepest depressions because of it all, and I've said to myself, Eric, but you're still alive. And I was like, I can't argue with that one. I can't argue with that one. Like, I'm still here for a reason. So because of that, I'm going to find a reason to be happy. It's been one of the most life-changing experiences, that I've experienced in my life so far. And I'm only 34. So I still have a ways to go. But
Yeah, perfect. I think that's a perfect example that really illustrates that. And so like that was what surrender looked like in that situation. What would giving up have looked like in that situation? Being like, okay, well, I'm moving home then. This isn't working out. This isn't happening.
Exactly. And you know what's crazy about that? I couldn't do that to myself. I could have done that, but I had signed a year lease here, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I signed a lease. I'm gonna ride out this year. So yeah, it's definitely been a moment of doing something very differently than I may have in the past. That is for sure a big time learning experience there.
Yes, and that's beautiful, because that's what shows us that we're growing, when we notice that we're doing something differently. Even if we're making mistakes, right? If we're making new mistakes, we know that there's growth that's happening.
Yeah, for sure.
And then so the next question that we had here was, would you apply that same approach to relationships? And I would say you apply that approach is applicable to all areas of life. Really.
I would absolutely apply it to relationships.
Yeah, is it flowing? Are you making, even like what we just said, right? Of like, are you making new mistakes? Right? Are you doing things differently?
Mm-hmm.
Are you noticing are you working with the energy of surrender? Are you noticing where it is that you can continue to grow? And it's like what we talked about, right? We talked about what's the difference. How do you know whether you're growing with someone in a relationship versus you're just acting out your toxic patterns with each other? And so part of the surrender, right? If you are just acting out those same toxic patterns, is the letting go, is the possibly moving away from that. And sometimes,
is there growth? Are you moving past it, or are you staying stuck in that energy?
Right, exactly.
But I would apply the energies of surrender, especially to situations with like other people or interpersonal relationships, for the sheer fact that you cannot control somebody else. No matter how much you may want to, no matter how much you may try, and no matter how successful you may ultimately be or unsuccessful you may be at controlling someone else, you can never really control someone completely. No. At some point, well, hopefully for you, if you're trying to be in control, they don't break free. But once people break free from that control, it's over. Like you ultimately, one's control of oneself comes from within the self. So getting caught up in what is my partner doing? Why are they doing this? Who are they with? This, that, and the third. Like, I've found that it's so much easier, or it's so much better to just focus on being happy with you. And when you're happy with you, you don't look for that happiness with another person. So you're not so worried about what your partner is doing, because if you actually are in a relationship with them, then that most likely means you can trust them. And so that element right there makes it easier for you to surrender in the relationship and just go with the flow. But again, that all comes back to your core relationship with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just as soon as you started talking, I was thinking the same thing. Like it's because it all comes back to that control, right? Like the only thing that we can control is ourselves, our actions, and our reactions. We can't control anybody else. We can try.
Right.
And like Eric said, that may work successfully for a period of time, at least on the surface. But it also expends a whole lot of energy and effort. And where could that energy and effort be better spent?
Mm-hmm.
And why is it that we feel the need to control somebody else, right? So it's just about, and this even shows up in little things, right? Like if our partner has little habits and mannerisms that we find irritating, or they do little things that bother us, right? It's like there's an aspect of surrender there too, where it's like, is this really that important? Or can I learn, can I work with this?
Right.
You know, like, and when we get to the point where we're trying to change everything about, because there's a difference, right? And I think that this is where people get confused sometimes. It is important to be able to love and accept everyone for who they are and where they're at. Right? If we're trying to be in a relationship with somebody and we already know right off the bat, I want this, and this to be different about them, it's probably not the relationship for us.
No, however, probably not.
We ideally want someone who's wanting to change and grow, just as we are wanting to change and grow. So there's a difference between like that healthy growth and just wanting to come in and completely change who somebody is. And I think a lot of times we can mirror that back to ourselves again and be like, what about myself am I wanting to change?
Yes, because that's really all that you have control over, your own self.
Yes, we have to, like Pamela said, we have to respect others' free will, even if it's uncomfortable or painful. Yeah, everybody has that choice, right? Everyone has that free will and they get to exercise that and they get to use that however they want. And so when we're able to surrender, we're able to respect their free will and not get upset and flustered when they make free will choices that don't align with the choices that we would have made ourselves, or the choices that maybe we had hoped that they would make. It's like, okay, that's your choice. That's your decision. You are a sovereign, autonomous being. This is what you're going to do. And like Eric said, I'm going to worry less about what you're doing, and I'm going to worry more about what I'm doing.
That's right. Yeah.
And we naturally meet, right? We naturally meet in the middle. If we're meant to, if our energies resonate, then we don't have to worry so much about that, because there's a lot of complementary energy that's there. Anyway. Right. So we can each make our free will choices. We can each be in our own beautiful state of surrender, and that's going to flow together. And sometimes it won't. And that's when we come together to acknowledge and understand within ourselves, right? We are always bringing it back to the self instead of trying to deflect it onto the other person. And we figure out how it is that we can grow together, because it's always a process. It's an individual and a together thing when we're in a relationship, right? But it's always things happening in here.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yes, it does. Anything that we can possibly think of exists, Johnny. It all exists. It's just, are we open to that? Have we done enough? Have we grown within ourselves to the point where we're able to be receptive to that? And we're ready for that to be the reflection that's reflected back to us. You know, I've seen people with some incredibly powerfully healthy relationships. I'm actually in a pretty healthy relationship right now.
Good for you.
It wasn't always that way. We went through a big process of a lot of these energies that we're talking about, right? It was a process of kind of coming out of all of some of the intensity of what we talked about earlier, right? And then meeting this person and him kind of being that opportunity for me to put into practice everything that I learned. Like, okay, now I know how to set boundaries.
Yes,
now I
that's
know how to
awesome.
ask for what I need. Now I know like how to figure out, like, is it time to stay or is it time to go? And there were times where it took me a little while, right? But ultimately I made the choices that were most aligned for myself. And eventually he caught up and he realized, like, okay,
Awesome.
yeah, he respected, he was able to meet me where I needed him to meet me in order for us to grow together.
That's
And
really
it was
awesome.
really incredible, but it's all a learning process, and we're still
Yes, for
learning,
sure.
and there's still constant growth, and there has to be constant communication.
Yeah.
And you know, we have to be willing to remain in energetic resonance for each other.
Yes.
You know? Yeah, but so it's absolutely possible. It's just it can be a long road to get there sometimes.
Right. That's true. I like to think of it though as I have my whole life to take this journey or to have this journey. So I'm not gonna rush it anymore, because it's not gonna happen any faster than it's meant to. So, and my life is going to, I've become very comfortable in the knowledge or the understanding that my life is going to encompass exactly what it needs to encompass. So I don't need to be afraid of what's gonna happen when, because it's all gonna happen in time.
Exactly. Everything happens exactly when and how it's meant to. And that's why surrender is so beautiful, because we can't control that anyway.
Yes.
They call it divine timing for a reason. And so the more we can just accept that and allow that and just continue showing up as best we can for ourselves, as ourselves, in every moment, we know that everything's going to unfold exactly how it's meant to.
That's right.
You know, it's just about navigating our experience by, is this resonating for me?
Yeah.
Am I in my integrity? How am I feeling right now? Right? Am I in alignment with my truth?
Yeah.
It's so funny because we make it so complicated,
but it's not.
It's so simple.
So simple. So simple.
But that is the beauty of being human, right?
Yeah, that's true.
What we came here to do was to overcomplicate everything and to learn to learn from it.
Yikes.
And it's just like enlightenment is a process of simplification.
Uh-huh.
We're breaking and breaking everything down to its simplest form.
Simplest form. No convoluted nothing.
Mm.
No convoluted processes or anything. Just keep it simple, sweetie. That's it.
That's it. And I know it's different in sidereal astrology. But in the Western astrology, as we move into 2022, we're going to be working with a lot of Taurus and Scorpio energies. And that Taurus energy is all about being. It's all about presence. Like, it's so like really learning how to move into that state of presence. Like we've done so much. There's so much intense work that we're always doing to heal, but sometimes it's just about being.
Yes. Yeah, I feel that. I totally feel that. I definitely feel like 2022 is going to be a year where I'm hearing progress and steady growth, but this is coming from the foundation of what it is we've been putting together over the year of 2021, because 2021 was a huge reconstructive year for the collective.
Yeah.
Big time reconstructive year.
Yeah.
And now we get a chance as we move into 2022. It feels like we get a chance to flow with what we're creating now, to allow it to put it on cruise control and let it coast and do what it's going to do and grow. And yeah, I totally feel that. Totally.
And I love that too, because that is kind of a great example of surrender too, right?
Yes, of course. Absolutely. 100%. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just surrendering, allowing it to be, continuing to build and create, but like going with the natural flow and the energy of where that cycle of creation is for each and every single one. And enjoying our creations too, right? Taking that time to be fully present and anchored in the experience of what it is that we're creating.
Yeah.
And have fun with it.
That's awesome.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. This has been absolutely beautiful. Did you have anything that you wanted to Any final thoughts that you wanted to share, Eric?
Not really, no, unless you had any.
Oh, it's been really beautiful doing this and getting to
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this. This is great.
Yeah, it's really beautiful, I think, when we get to connect and collaborate and just combine our energies. And I was
For
like,
sure.
we'll have some great conversations, just kind of like talking about things in general.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
as we're moving through these energies, but definitely I really value your insight, and I value your
Thank you. The same to you. Like, I'm really digging your vibes and your energies. I was just listening to one of your videos, and it was totally on point, and I don't remember what was one of the latest ones that you put out. It wasn't the Scorpio new moon, although I started, no, the Mars and Mercury or energies that
Mercury and
I started
Scorpio.
watching that one and I was like, yes, okay, excellent. And I also was watching it because I wanted to see how we were comparing, me from doing it from sidereal and you from Western and tropical, and it was there. I was vibing with it. So I'm really happy to make this connection and to like fuse our collectives here. This is fun.
Yes, absolutely. And so what are Mars and Mercury in right now in the sidereal astrology?
In sidereal astrology, Mars and Mercury are still in Virgo.
They're still in Virgo.
Yeah, actually, I can hold on. Oh, that's wrong. That's not what I wanted.
It's so interesting to see, because it's like, it's where we begin to understand, right, that multiple truths exist at once.
Yes.
There is not one truth when it comes to anything in the universe, right?
Absolutely.
There's just different perspectives and ways of viewing and understanding things. And so it's really fun, even with astrology, to be like, there's so many different perspectives and ways to view these energies.
And I 100% advocate for people to investigate as many different avenues of astrology or whatever as they can, because I know for me, I always was very into it. I loved astrology growing up and everything, but it never made sense to me. And I maybe you can say a lot of this has to do with the fact that, you know, I'm older now and I've lived X amount of years, and so I've been through a certain amount of experience at this point, so now I have things to relate this to. Okay, but when I really started looking at the system or astrology from the sidereal point of view, for me, that's when it clicked. And so because there are so many different avenues and so many different ways of looking at it, I highly recommend that you guys research and look at as many different ways or systems as you possibly can, because what doesn't work for you in one system might work for you in a different system or a different frame of mind or a different way of thinking about it. So always open your minds to whatever is out there, because you never know how it could resonate with you. You never know how it could work for you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just that process of continuing to expand, right?
Yeah.
And to keep minds open and to be teachable and to just see like, all right, well, what does resonate with me? What feels right? You know, like I check out my sidereal astrology sometimes, and I've had my chart done and all of that. And I kind of look at the energies and I'm like, oh, I can feel into that too. It's like different parts and sides of yourself that you're able to understand. And then even that, like, I can definitely feel that Virgo energy right now as well.
Yeah, so Mars and Mercury are still in Virgo. The sun is now in Libra. I think it went into Libra yesterday, or maybe 2 days ago, actually, because it's 2 days ago. But that's from sidereal astrology. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's really fun, and so I encourage everyone on here to go check out Eric's channel and check out some of the he's been doing some more videos on the astrology as well, and just
I'm
see
having a lot of fun with that.
See how that resonates with what we know of the Western energies of the planets and what they're doing right now. And like you said, I think it's just beautiful to be able to connect our tribes and connect our energy. Like the more we can build and interconnect with each other, the better, because we're all on this journey together. And I really was inspired by as many people watching on my channel right now know, I have been able to collaborate with Pete from Empath Uprising quite a bit lately. And just energy of bringing our tribes together has been so beautiful. And so it's like, let's continue to do that. Let's continue to expand. Let's continue to get more energies involved and connect more deeply with each other and have, like we said, just all of these different viewpoints and all these different angles and perceptions to be able to understand ourselves and our journey and just more enhanced support and connection.
Absolutely. The more connections, the better.
Yes, exactly. The more we connect with each other, the more that light within us grows.
That's right.
And as that grows individually, like we connect, and that grows exponentially collectively as well. And that's how we're shifting the energy on this planet, is just by all of us really finding each other and resonating and allowing us. It's like we all shine our light, right? We're all learning how to shine our light authentically and unapologetically.
100%.
And we inspire each other. It's so much like I shine so much brighter when I'm talking to somebody like you, Eric, right? Or I'm talking to any of you in this chat, right? When I'm talking to Pete, it's like, because we're all connected. And it's just, we liberate each other, and it's like it's like turning up the voltage, right?
Yeah.
The electric voltage. And so it's so important to just get these energies out here and get these, allow more of this beautiful free thinking energy to flow, and these exchange these perceptions and these viewpoints. And so thank you so much for doing this with me today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And so if people are enjoying this, I love this whole free flowing format of just like, let's talk about what's coming up and what we're feeling and what's resonating with us right now. And I am definitely glad that we started out talking about this twin flame energy, because I think that was it was a really important aspect of our journey that a lot of people experience, that I think does need to be
it's like the initiation point.
What's that?
I said it's like the initiation point for all of us.
Many, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so we don't want to, just like anything, we don't want to hyper focus on anything, but we want to address and understand absolutely everything. And talk about all these things with each other, right? We want to talk about every aspect of this journey.
Yeah.
Because that's how we all grow and expand together.
For sure. Absolutely. 100%. I agree.
Woo! All right.
Yay! Well, I love you all. You guys are awesome. It's great to meet you all. Happy Saturday to you. Yes.
Yes. Happy Saturday for everyone. I think for most people it is Saturday today. Yes, absolutely. The more collabs and the more we talk about this energy, the better. Absolutely agreed, Pete. Yes. I think for everyone on right now, for Louise, it might not be Saturday. I don't know.
No, Louise is down under, right? Louise is in Australia.
Yes. Yes. So whatever there's so many, it's so fun when you start connecting with people in so many different places around the world.
Right.
But it does get confusing sometimes, because you're like, what was the time difference there? And is it Happy Sunday to you? Is it Happy
New
Saturday?
Zealand? Okay. All right. Excellent.
Oh, New Zealand. Yes. So I always like to say happy now moment. Wherever it is that you are, I hope that you're having a beautiful now moment. Sunday, 5:30 a.m. Oh, wow. Yeah, she's an early riser. Up with that.
Me too. 5:30. I'm up at 5:30. I love watching the sunrise.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But see, I go to bed at like 8:30, 9 o'clock, something like that.
See, I would love to do that, because I know it's so important to really reset that circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
And it's so good for the body. But I just can't help being a night owl. No matter how hard I try to go to bed earlier, even if I'm not doing anything, lately I've barely slept at all. I was interested to see how this was going to go today, because it was like it was around the full moon all of a sudden again.
I'm sitting here yawning, so like I get it.
Yeah, and then I over caffeinated to compensate before.
Oops.
So I was like, oh well, it's all gonna happen, right? It was that surrender. Like, okay, it's everything's gonna work how it's going to. We had some technical issues and difficulties, but we kept moving through it. We surrendered to whatever was going to happen, and it all worked out perfectly, ultimately in the end.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. So everybody have a beautiful Saturday, Sunday now moment wherever you are. Everyone catching the replays of this, I hope that you are having a gorgeous day as well. Yes, so much love to each and every single one of you, and thank you so much for joining us whenever it is that you are finding this message, or these messages, I guess.
Bye, everybody.
All right, bye. And now I think I know how to do this. So I think now I'm just going to hit the end button.